business is the minutes from the April 23rd session.
Looks good.
All right,
Thank you.
okay. Then the minutes are approved as shown. Next item is the provisional ballot review.
Okay, so we had one provisional ballot that was cast for this election. The voter was registered to vote in Sebastian County. They moved to Washington County. They changed, according to the notes, they changed their address at the DMV, and they even wrote 13125 on here. So whoever filled this out actually kind of visited with them, but their voter registration remained in Sebastian County. So therefore, they are not eligible to vote in this election.
Do we know what happened on that?
So once again, it's the
DMV.
DMV. I mean, according to the note on here, you know, I don't think they would have written DMV unless that voter,
Yeah.
when they changed their address, probably at the DMV, noted that they wanted to change their voter registration. And it
So
didn't get changed.
the lesson there is if you move, and we can't say this enough, check your voter view.
Yes, however, for this election, this ballot cannot count.
That's my question.
But
is that-
going forward,
Oh,
these
that's
ballots
right.
will
Okay.
be able to be counted, and when we get into this, we can
Okay.
kind of discuss that in a little bit more detail. But yes, these laws don't go into effect until, I think August 1st or something
Okay.
like that, so it does not apply for this election. But going forward, whenever a voter comes in and, we can't find them in the poll book, we'll call the county clerk's office. The county clerk will verify that they are registered to vote in the state. They will fill out a voter registration card at the polling location. They will call that information into the clerk. The clerk will be able to transfer them from whatever county they were registered in to Washington County, add them to the poll book, they'll vote a regular ballot. So they won't even have to vote.
Oh, good, yeah.
So, yeah, so, but for this election, unfortunately, this ballot cannot count.
Yeah.
So this is the letter to the voter, this is the outside of the envelope with the notation from the clerk, and then, this is the note for the commission to sign, and then I would need one commission, to sign this. So,
Nevertheless, check voter view.
Yes.
If you have
Now-
any doubt.
now, this voter can attend the hearing on Friday, the 23rd, and if they can find their DMV receipt,
Yeah,
because that will show on the receipt whether they requested a change.
the county clerk didn't have any record of
Mm-mm.
that.
No, she doesn't have records of the DMV
Isn't there
receipt.
some database with DMV that they can look people
They
up?
can look to see different things, but, I don't know that they can see the receipts. You know, so, but if for some reason this voter didn't have their receipt and their receipt did show
Yeah.
that they requested a change, then this ballot would be eligible. But that's the only time we've ever been able to do that with a voter. For one of our elections, the voter was actually able to, yeah,
Producers.
To produce.
Nobody keeps that.
yeah.
You think the DMV would keep the record of what we do?
So, I am going to forward this to the. I'm gonna forward this to the state board. We actually went to the state board 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they talked as if this was not an issue, even though we know
It's
it's
been
been
an
a
issue for
recurrent issue.
decades.
And they're just like, give us a name. So we have.
Here's a name.
It's a recent name. We've got dozens
Yeah.
and dozens from prior years.
So
Wow.
I'm gonna forward this
Please do.
to Chris to say, hey, let's reach out to the DMV, and
Yep.
here's a perfect example
Yeah,
of someone who said,
if you can find out from them, then what the DMV says to track this.
I
was
would
very
hope
curious.
this fella will come. Do we need to say his name
Yeah,
right now? Richard Johnson. Very good.
I mean, what an example of good legislation that we need for up this long review though. The bill that allows
yes,
this voter to change
Right.
counties, their registered voter on election day.
The bill used to be 4 days because we printed.
Yeah, that was the only reason for
And
it.
you had to print whole books so far in
that's right,
advance,
yeah.
and so the technology wasn't there when they
Right.
wrote that 4-day rule. But now the technology's there, so.
Well, I hope he shows up for the hearing, just to, complete the process, so to speak. There's at least 2 places. Yeah, there.
Well, and have a receipt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
that's true,
receipt.
yeah, with the receipt.
And I don't know if the DMV email, like a lot of times they print the receipt, but I don't know if you have the option to have them emailed to you.
Yeah.
That would be
Mhm.
more likely.
Even better. Okay, on to legislative update.
Okay, so, like I said, I put this together for us yesterday afternoon, because I thought this would be the easiest way
Yeah.
for us to kind of, go over the legislation. Mama, I'm sorry, I didn't make a book for you. So.
You didn't want to have to go to sleep at night, did you?
So this list is the list that I've created for tracking the
Oh,
legislation.
yeah.
And I've broken it down into the different types of legislation. I have not printed out all of these acts just simply because some don't truly impact the workings of the election commission or something that the election commission has control over, whether it's candidate filing, initiatives, those types of things. So there are a lot more bills on here than actually.
Well, and you've got the links here too,
I have
so
the
we
links
want to
here.
read.
Yes, and I've emailed this list to you in the
Okay,
past,
good.
so you would have this electronically.
Yeah.
So in the front of your book this is the legislative update that the SBEC has done.
Okay.
And so it covers kind of the same things that I have on my list. The County Clerks Association is meeting in June in Fort Smith. And Lindsay Bailey, who is the attorney for the County Clerks Association, will be presenting the legislative update. Since the meeting's in Fort Smith, I asked Becky if she minded if I attended.
Yeah.
And then Kim from Benton County,
Okay.
we're gonna drive down just for the legislative part
Yeah,
of the
that's great.
presentation and the roundtable, just to kind of hear it. So yeah, I thought I would only just go over a few of the
Mhm.
bills.
Please,
So, okay,
please touch on the important ones,
Okay.
the ones with major impact and whatever.
so in your book, it kind of follows this list. Absentee voting. There are 2 bills that will impact the voter statement, and then absentee voting. So it's, this first one here, Act 403. If a voter, requests an absentee ballot and they live in assisted care facility or long-term nursing home, that different type of thing, and, someone helps them fill out their ballot, it now will require on their voter statement a assisted voter portion. So basically, just like a voter who votes in person at the polling location, they fill out an assisted voter card.
Is this going to be included in our form?
It'll be on the voter statement. So this
Okay.
will be something that the state board is
Oh, they're gonna
reworking the voter statement.
Okay.
To include that on there. Now, there is no penalty if there's a failure to have it signed. So for instance, if someone did have assistance at the polling location and no one filled it out, there is no other, because we don't know, but it's kind of setting up the same procedures for in-person
Okay.
voting.
Got it.
The second one, that's included here is, Act 846. At the time when I made this list, some of these had still been in the governor's
Yeah.
office. I'll go back in and redo this, this list, but this one will require voters who request an absentee ballot for being unavoidably absent to have a witness signature on their voter statement. So there are different categories for requesting absentee ballots. So military, civilian overseas, disabled, but unavoidably absent is the only one that would require a witness signature. So this will be something that's on the voter statement as well.
Wow.
From what I can tell, there is no consequence if there is a
Oh,
signature.
yeah.
So there's in this bill, there's no rejection protocol, basically. So for instance, when we're talking about absentees, there's a part of the bill that says you must reject if there's no signatures and date of birth. This is not listed, that part of that is not amended.
Got it.
So this is only requiring the signature, but right now, unless something changes or
Yeah.
there's no mechanism to cause us to reject this.
Yeah.
Got it.
Will they make us make them provisional? Will they, I don't know. So they're working on the rules for all of these, so it's unclear, but
That's part of what the HBC is working on.
this, yes. Mhm. So will they have the, yes, I don't know if they'll have the authority to make the rule to say that this is a provisional. Because there's nothing in here.
Even if it's provisional, it can still.
It can
be in
be,
that
it
process,
just adds another layer
Sure,
of
sure.
forms to fill out. But this is a change for voters. So for voters who are voting absentee, who are unavoidably absent, whether you're on a business trip or, on vacation or whatever, there'll now be a signature place on your voter statement for someone to witness you filling out the voter statement. That individual has to be over the age of 18. So what's going to go on the voter statement, I'm not sure. Like, they have to put their birthday, how do we confirm they're over the age of 18?
Right.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
those
That's
types
part
of,
of it.
yeah. So, so that definitely is an impact to the voters, along with the other one for the assisted voter. The assisted voter, I'm going to go back to it for a second. We have been fortunate. Lacey has a great contact with a lot of the assisted living locations, nursing homes and different things like that. We've been able to go and actually do presentations to their administrators. This will be something that we will add to our presentation, talk to the administrators about, hey, this is going to be new on their voter statement. We'll
Right.
follow through with that part. So we'll be directly contacting those groups impacted by that.
Max,
Yes.
this second. Max.
Yep.
On page 2.
Yep.
Paragraph C1 says the voter statement shall include one statement. That word shall kind of bothers me when you're saying that there's nothing in here that say that this would be rejected. The word shall seems quite definitive. Both of you.
Yeah, I think, oh, no, I think that, no, good question, Jim. I think the voter statement shall include the signing of the sworn statement should be witnessed by at least, I think the voter statement shall include that requirement.
So
Certainly, but then I think the question is, that voter statement, I guess the SBPC is revising, will include that requirement, but then there's still the question separately,
Shall include
if they
one
don't
statement.
sign it. Yeah.
That may be.
Yeah. So definitely, I agree, it has to have that in as a voter statement, but then if they don't sign it, because I guess still a little unclear. Yeah, good question.
that's
Yeah.
a different part of the law where the rejection parts are included, the consequence
Did they
basically.
just forget to update that part, or they intend to make it unclear? Yeah.
So that is yet to be hammered out, but this is only for unavoidably absent. It's not for someone who's
Got it.
ill or
Yeah.
something, or for overseas citizens. because they're not considered unavoidably absent.
Oh, yeah.
Absent is a reason to make this change.
I don't know.
More restrictions on absentee
The
voting.
person that's signing this, well, they signed it, yes, I know that this voter friend of mine was unavoidably absent.
Or is going to be, yeah, apparently. That seems to be the import of the law.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like somebody who lives alone and is going out of town for work or something, have to meet up with somebody else and get a signature and. Anyway, that's why I tell people to vote early, right? And some people can't, but after the process, so it's.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say that the individual has to be a registered voter.
Right,
Like,
that's what my first thought
there's
was.
no parameters on that, it just has to be over the age of
Over the age.
18. So, if you are on a business trip in Florida, a Floridian. 'cause sometimes
Oh, it wouldn't
it's
have to be a citizen of Arkansas.
So then, is the SBEC going to write this language, about this foreign statement language?
Yes, so that part will be,
They're gonna write that.
that will be new in the voter statement.
And Jennifer will rewrite.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So I will submit my
Make it clear.
suggestion for the voter statement.
Okay.
So yes, so because the voter statement now will include 3 different
Yeah.
places for signatures that voters may not realize that they need to have signed or don't need to have signed. So there's already the place on there for designated bearers. There's now going to be for assisted voters. And then now there's going to be for unavoidably absent. So the voter statement will get a little bit more confusing because not every voter will need to do
All three.
all 3 of
Yeah.
those, or
Yeah.
even, so for which one do I do? What I suspect, we may get back to signatures
Everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So that
I'm
makes
covering
sense.
all my bases.
Right. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
that part will become confusing for voters in that sense.
It's already confusing.
Mhm.
So this is just gonna add an extra element.
Yeah. So. Yeah, but one thing I have already visited with Becky about, we are able to identify which voters are unavoidably absent. So, because when my canvassers are canvassing, how are they going to know if the
Right.
person was unavoidably absent? They'll have to, that would cause them to look at every single application to do that. So we will pre-mark those
Okay.
before we start canvassing.
Okay.
I started that with this small election for those voters who don't have to show ID military.
Okay.
So that my coworkers, when they canvass, they knew this one didn't have to have ID. So we're gonna have to, that'll be a part of our canvassing process.
So where does it say? For unavoidable, I can't say that.
So here's how it doesn't say it. So it says the witnessing requirement, on page 2, shall not apply to a voter who has applied for these reasons. So the only reason not included in this list is unavoidably absent. So basically what this has done is this says, so it doesn't apply if you have an illness. It doesn't apply if you are a resident of a long-term care facility. It doesn't apply if you're unable to attend because of religion. So, and
No
it's
example of what doesn't apply.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
unavoidably absent is, the only one that's left off that list. Teddy, can you give me paper and grab, and here, if you'll grab the absentee ballot box that has box 1, box 2, and that way I'll show you guys.
Okay.
There has been some substantial question for the use of the unavoidably absent excuse.
So I don't know.
that would be
Yeah,
So they're trying to fix.
maybe
Yeah.
implied.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some suspected, misuse of it, but
I mean, if we're looking at.
Oh, no, the clear.
I've never seen, I don't recall seeing any evidence of somebody being unavoidably absent, using that as a reason to apply for an absentee ballot and then voting the absentee ballot in over the decade of it.
Well,
And there's not even that many people who use it as an
Yeah.
excuse, for a reason to vote.
I'm sure that so far that I didn't look at what their reason is. Or the boxes to check.
There it
Yeah.
is.
I mean, I know I've seen the boxes, but have I looked at that when I've looked at absentee ballots?
Oh,
It's not usually the thing that we're focused on. Yeah.
no.
Yeah, I suspect it's just another example of legislation to make voting more restrictive, whatever. Stated purpose with the absentee voting.
All right, so this is, well, and see this individual actually. So this is the application. And the application is 2 pages, but, so this is the first page. So this is where the individual, and I don't know how I got so lucky to have actually picked one that chose unavoidably absent. And then you'll see these are the other reasons.
Okay.
And then they mark if they're in the county, if they're overseas, because that then changes. Because they could mark unavoidably absent, but they also could be overseas.
Uh-huh.
So they choose one of these. And then when they fill out their voter statement, there'll now will be another one of these little boxes that will be for witness
Oh,
signatures, for assisted voter signature, and then, of course, there's this one that's currently here for designated. There.
Are these all, SBC supported?
No, they're not.
Sponsored, these the old sponsored.
Yeah, this one was not.
No,
No, this one did not come from the SB. Yeah.
Ask you to ask them.
It was, this one did not come from the SB. So, but then on Becky's list that we get, she puts reasons, so we'll be able to go through this list and be able to pre-mark these.
Now Becky's list, when you say Becky's,
Well, the county clerk, this is the absentee roster that we get from Becky.
okay, so it's 4 out of.
they're really specific here in terms of, the voter statement shall include the following statement in bold capitalized letters at the bottom of the page.
Yes, so
That's very
that's
definite.
also new. What they're doing is rewording.
Oh, okay.
Basically, this will have an addition of that.
This-
The voter currently has to sign that way, so it's not, it's just more.
Okay.
And then, so that's for absentee, so election, or county. They actually messed up, county clerk.
So-
Yeah, I went to county clerk, I skipped election,
Oh, I see.
apparently. I'll reword. So this one that I've printed out for the county clerk, this one is going to allow the county clerk to email the county chairs the list of candidates, and then, so it kind of is starting to remove that layer of having to mail things in the mail. So it's setting up a process to allow us to email different things that are required to be provided, to the county chairs, in regards to candidates and, that are eligible to be on the ballot. But one of the reasons I pulled this out is I think for future legislation, we should look at certified mail and first class mail. When I talked about the provisional ballot process of us mailing out things to those voters, they're not receiving them.
Mhm.
I think that if there was a mechanism that instead of us mailing, we emailed for those voters who had an email address, this letter, they would get it instantly
Sure.
rather than having to wait for
Who
the
knows
mail.
how long?
Yes, so I think that,
Weeks.
yeah, I think that the idea of future legislation to kind of take away the first class mailing, it will save counties money. It will allow those individuals to get the information in a quicker manner. Obviously, you would have to come up with something, you would have to either email or mail would be, you know, because if you don't have an email address, we would still have to mail it to you.
How many email addresses do we have? Not enough, but do we have some for voters?
Yes, so so for instance, on the green card that the voter fills out, it's,
Oh, the provisional
On the
ballot. We can
provision-
ask for the email at
we
that
already
time.
do
It's not just in the
Right.
registration.
Yeah.
database. Oh, I
no,
see.
Yeah.
so
That totally makes sense.
we already
Yeah,
do ask for the email address and the phone
that's
number.
great.
So we're already collecting that information.
Yeah,
Why not let us be able to email out the letter rather than waiting for the mail to finally get to the voter? So I think that if, you know, we could work on
yeah.
legislation that would allow us to have that option, that's more
And that-
information.
Oh, I think that's
And
great.
that, oh, excuse me.
Could we do it as you just said, we asked for the email address and phone number, I assume cell number, most. Is there an option to text?
So there would be an option to text, email, the way this bill is written,
Both,
you
right.
have to have a read receipt. So,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
instead of
Email, I
emails.
get more and more of those on my phone. I know you can.
I have
that's
been-
true,
but
yeah.
yeah.
I think it's great.
So, but yeah,
Both,
mhm.
yeah.
So, yeah,
A lot of people, have gotten so accustomed to texting that they hardly ever even look at the email.
that is true too, so, yeah. So,
Yeah.
If nothing else, you could also text a message. We have emailed you a document.
now, that would become a little bit more cumbersome because that would require us to individually go in and text everyone. If we did an email, we can do a mass email. So, but,
Required text or required email, but maybe
yeah,
ask for text in, it'd be nice if the system.
It-
works somehow to
How many
text, you know,
people
some of
on
them
the
people.
call? How many?
so for a general election, it'd be 900. So, like, for this election, sure, it'd be easy to do.
Yeah.
Sure,
Like,
yeah,
But for a general election, it would be a little bit more difficult. However, one of the advantages though is because it's an instantaneous receipt, it would give us a little bit more time to do it rather than trying to get the mail out, which
Yes.
is still just as cumbersome. So, yeah, so
Is the receipt that we get back is a read receipt, right?
it showed that they read it.
Could you, wait a week and then take the ones that aren't read, text them?
Mm.
So, or you would mail them the letter, but yeah, you could text, yeah. So,
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
but I
Don't
would
you sometimes phone people?
So we have in the past,
Yeah.
So that's one of the things when we have the time,
Right,
it's for absentees.
Yeah.
Absentees is the hardest one, because absentee voters don't get any type of notification.
Yeah.
And so it's only for the absentee voters who fail to include a copy of their
Yes.
ID. So those are the ones that we've been calling,
mhm.
when.
So it's
we
not the
know
whole
that.
list.
Yeah, it's just,
Okay.
it's because the voters who voted in person received that notice.
Yeah.
The voters who vote absentee, they may have thought they put their ID in there. They might have put their water bill in there. So those are the ones that we have taken the time to call in the past. So yes.
Well, just, all I would ask is we look at all ways to
Yep.
communicate with the donors and ensure that we've done everything.
And, I, will have our webpage is live. I will add this information to it. Tom pointed out something at the last meeting when you guys were talking about putting the list first and then the information afterwards. For this election, we only have one name, but when we have 900 names, you're not gonna be able to see. So I talked to IT and there's a way to put a search for your name.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah.
that way I can have that information at the top. I'm not gonna do it for this one,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's just one name.
Right.
But for future elections, I'll be able to have the information, but at the very top, it's gonna say search your name,
Yeah.
do
Okay,
this.
okay.
And then it will go straight to their name.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, Tom pointed that out was good,
Thank you, Tom.
was good,
Kudos.
good thought.
Great.
Now, I'm looking at your copy here. I think I've got something different.
This,
Yeah, you've got that. Jennifer's is much shorter.
Oh, I'm in the county.
Oh, you're,
clerk.
wait a minute.
Oh, you're kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, where are we at? Which one are we up to now?
Oh,
election day
Cool.
is the next one.
and we're still back in the.
Yes.
okay,
Yeah,
all right.
so,
Confused.
so election date.
We'll go to the shoulder.
Election date, this is the one we all kind of know is moving the primary to March.
You're in the blue. Okay.
Yep,
All right, I'm with you.
So from now on, the primary will be always held in March. There will be no going back and forth.
Until the next legislative
Well-
session, when they change it. to
When they
something else.
change it back. Oh, yeah. But I kind of have a feeling they're gonna stick with one day.
You think they will?
Voters voters get confused
Yeah.
with it switching back and forth each time. So, so this does, allow us to move forward with a consistent election, in March. So yes, so that's part of the reason why this bill is so,
Okay,
is, changes it in certain places.
wait. I've only got a 2-page thing here.
This,
So apparently, I did this on lack of sleep yesterday.
Maybe they got, what do you got on your first page? Senator Hester and Representative Wooldridge?
Yeah,
Okay,
so I may have put yours in.
yeah, I think it came backwards. All right. We'll get on the same
Yeah,
page.
this.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on county clerk.
so
Hester
Well, we
and
did
Wooldridge.
county clerk.
This, we're on election procedures, the orange.
was
Yep,
this,
go to
this the county clerk?
That's the county clerk, yes. Somehow I got you guys off.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm really confused now. Maybe the tabs are wrong.
that could be it too.
What do you have on?
And it could be also, I did this on like.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's the blue tab
Here's
say?
election date.
Okay. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so we're on election dates.
Yes,
Senator Hester and Representative Wooldridge.
yes, so that's the one that moves the primary.
And that's why you
Yes.
said it so long.
Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, and then, so that's really the only change in that part that I included under election dates for us. And then, election procedures is the one where we have a little bit more. So,
It's just.
yeah, there's several bills in here. So the first one concerns, which is Act 458, House Bill 1693. So this one concerns the remaking of damaged or defective ballots. So in the past, we were required to have every damaged or defective or UCAVA ballot redone and included in the election night count. When the state went and did audits, they discovered that in some of the counties, the only discrepancy that they found was when ballots had been remade. And it was human error, because basically someone is sitting down, recreating a ballot, and then they didn't recreate it faithfully. But part of that is because we are forced to do everything that night in regards to all the other things that you're doing, because it had to be included in your election night. So the thinking behind this bill is give the election commission some breathing room, give them the ability to remake ballots either the next day or the following day, or even we've still requested to be able to do them election night.
Do you have that option?
Well, they're going to make the rules. So this
Okay.
bill specifically says that the SBEC will make the rules for this. So we've requested that option because we have over 200 Yocava ballots that we remake. And if you don't include those in your election night results, when we had that city of Fayetteville race that was within 23 votes, that would impact that. So there needs to be some type of leeway, some type of rules written that gives commissions a little bit more options.
Flexibility, yeah.
But the idea is that, basically having the time to do it,
Okay.
depending on your election, depending on the staff you have available.
Yeah.
So that one we'll kind of watch to see how it is that they set up the rules on when we can, reproduce those, what the deadline is for that. Of course, now we will need to be required, to include that in our election night results
As
as an outstanding
Yeah.
number of
Okay.
ballots. The next one is, Act 487, Senate Bill 293. This has to do with polling sites and the, copies of, things posted at the polling location. All the electioneering stuff is pulled from this bill, and it never got introduced or never, was not, even brought as a separate bill. Really, this doesn't impact anything, except it clearly defines what is required to be posted, and it puts it all in one location. But the electioneering part was the part we had been originally concerned about. The next one, which is Senate Bill 479, Act 593. This is the assisted voter one. So this is one that will impact voters at the polls on election day. So if a voter comes in and brings someone into a system, that individual must show ID.
Did you say this Act 593?
593,
Does
yes.
it specify the type of ID?
It does not specify the type of ID.
It could be a student ID from out of state.
Yes,
It's gotta be ID.
yes. So the state board will make rules for this
Okay.
as well, and we will certainly put our input into these rules.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that was discussed was, approved photo IDs, the ones you have to show.
Right.
But then the discussion devolved into, well, what if I'm assisting my mother, but I live in Missouri, my ID is from
Right.
Missouri.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, what will the ID be? How do we ascertain that the person's 18? What if the ID doesn't have age on it? So there's gonna be some things that have to be worked out.
You were already limited to assisting 6 voters.
Right, so yeah. So one of the things that we have been discussing is being able to process it in the poll book. That idea is well received, because that will make it a clean process for us to be able to process it in the poll book. But this will definitely be rules. But there also will be an option for those individuals. Let's say I bring someone with me and they don't have any type of ID, but this is the person I'm going to assist me. There will be a part of the procedure that would allow that individual to assist even if they didn't have ID. They would have to sign, I don't know if you remember when we had the voter ID and on the provisional ballot, there was that secondary signature that said, I am who I say I am. And if they didn't have ID, they
Yep.
could sign that.
Something like that.
Yeah, so this would be a similar setup for that, so, so that, is that one. So. And then the next one should be FOIA.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll put it there.
So this one, there's a lot in this bill. And, but the part of it that I kind of, pulled out was, the notifications, making sure that, yes, yeah,
What's the?
22 or Act 505. So notifying, sending out your notice 3 days in advance. I think it used
For anything.
for anything.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
yes.
before.
You know,
Got
those
it.
types of things.
3 days in advance, I assume there's been.
There is definitely an emergency acceptance in there. There's also in here, if we were having a meeting and one of us needed to meet remotely.
Yep.
Being able to do that, it allows that, but now if two of us had to meet remotely, so let's say Renee and Max had to meet remotely and only Jim and myself were here, we would also have to give the public access to be able to, you know, be in on it as well.
What do you mean, to be
That's
remote
like kind of like-
themselves?
yeah.
It's a public
Yes.
meeting, that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So it kind of, yeah, it
Yeah.
starts, you know, it's like, okay, you've got if think about it, you've got a quorum court with 15 people.
Yeah.
It's one thing to let one individual meet remotely because it's kind of, but once you start adding more and more people
You've
meet
got
remotely.
that, in that instance, you've got the technological capabilities to allow.
Right.
people,
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so, it also talks about polling, so for instance, members shouldn't send out, or an administrator shouldn't send out, hey, what do you think about
Right.
this? You can send out certainly informational, just like,
You couldn't do that anyway.
well, you could, it's clearly, it defines it a
Defined
little
in
bit
here,
more.
yeah.
So, it talked about that in there. I don't think there's anything in here that we, have violated or aren't doing. The 3-day one, I'll have to make sure that that kind of stays, you know,
Yeah.
ahead of that.
I like the birds, by the way.
We
I think we should start feeding them. I mean, they need food, or there's little baby birds in
It's
there.
baby bird.
they're on the outside. So, yeah,
They're,
that's been a.
they're not in.
No,
They're on the
no,
outside.
no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So far, they haven't been flying around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that,
Like, you know?
Yeah, they're all, well, in Walmart's the same way.
Yeah, that's true.
so, but because the election commission does have public meetings, because we're required to follow FOIA and all of that. I just wanted to kind of
Yeah.
include this since we are.
Got it, or those the only main
Those are
features?
there may be some more in there, but because we're such a small body.
Yeah.
I don't, you know.
Well, I mean, it really is touching on a lot of things that we've talked about in terms of getting people up to date in the law of all the technology that,
Yeah.
that we are using that hasn't been in, you know, we're still meeting in the public square or whatever.
And it does require, I don't know if this wasn't required previously, it requires your agenda to be
Oh.
included in your public notice. I don't know, it's new language in the sense that it's underlined in here.
Yeah,
But making sure that your agenda is included in that.
And posted, I see on the website or
Mhm.
social media page, which
Yes.
is good, because when I first joined the commission, I remember we didn't post our meetings even on the county's calendar.
Mhm.
And there was some issue that came up
Yeah.
sometime. People giving feedback about it.
So-
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and I remember we started doing it after that.
Yeah, so we-
And that makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
sometimes you don't think about it.
Right, right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
the only thing I'll have to look at this. I have not published my agenda on the social media aspect of it, so I'll need to start doing that possibly. I have been definitely on our website. I
Yeah,
include-
sure.
Yeah.
I have been putting that on our calendar, putting our agenda on there. I'll have to look at on the social media side of it, including our agenda. So that part is new language,
Mhm.
so. But like I said, I've been
Great. Thanks for the update.
kind of doing that, so yeah. And then school election. Okay. So,
Act.
Act 399, Senate Bill 135. So this first one, and I'm kind of gonna talk a little bit about them all kind of mixed up, but this first one allows us in an odd year to do an election by designated voter. So if a school board is having an election for their millage, so now in an odd year, because of another bill we're gonna discuss, the only election for schools is the millage in odd years. School board members are now every other year, even year. So if they have no change in the millage, then the school board will select a designated voter to come and vote on the school millage, so they don't have to hold an election. It will, and so, this is only in odd years. So in odd years, we would just create a ballot with the millage only on it. We would coordinate with the school district. We'd have to make sure that that person they designate is actually a registered voter in that school district, because that's not always the case,
Yeah.
depending on who they select, so we'd have to do that. So, it sets up that type of election. In an even year, the millage will still have to be on the ballot, regardless if it changes or if it doesn't change. But in the even year, of course, the millage is, the school election is held with the primary.
Right.
So this allows us to not have to do an election when there's no change in the bill. So, yeah, so,
I'm gonna ask us probably a stupid question.
No.
Don't laugh at.
Well, we will anyway.
Okay. What? If it's. They wanna keep the millage the same, but there's people, maybe a significant number of people. Who would vote no to that because they don't. They want the millage. Does that ever happen? When you get a yes and no votes?
I'm sure.
so,
Like if it's on there and nothing's changing,
Yeah.
like a bunch of people voting on it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely, right?
yeah,
So
they,
what we're doing now is we're saying that. People who would vote no,
Mhm.
you don't have to vote.
Yeah.
well, actually, their vote doesn't count anyway. So if there's.
I think it's saying that if there's no change in the millage, doesn't matter, if everybody voted no, it won't
Yeah,
do anything. I think it's just
So the
confusing the people,
village is kept
no matter what.
no matter what.
There's an illusion of choice when we let people vote and they get to vote yes or no. There's an illusion that that vote matters, but it doesn't matter because it's not going to change. no
and
matter what.
the whole point of that is it's a constitutional thing, so we're not gonna do anything about it.
Yeah.
Well.
Oh, we're
we
not
can,
going to, you'll get.
but
of course.
It's not that important.
So
So,
the rule people.
And that's consulting.
Elsewhere is that once a village is in existence and the amount is set, it stays there until somebody proposes a change, and then you would have a
Yes.
village vote.
Mhm.
It legally cannot be moved unless, who makes the decision as to whether there's going to be a millage change?
the school board.
So the school board votes to keep it like it is.
Or they don't vote to keep it like it is. It just
No,
is what it is.
No, the school board is required each year to
Make a
approve their
choice.
budget.
Okay.
And their budget includes the millage, that has to be published in the paper. So the school board does vote
They
on
do
it.
vote then
Yes.
each year.
Yeah.
Thank you, interesting.
Oh, no, for sure. Interesting. Oh, yeah, for
So
sure.
there was a constitutional amendment filed this year that would have removed it from the Constitution.
And it did.
It didn't get one that got any traction. This was the very next best thing to try and get us from having an election when there's no change in the millage, because, you're wasting taxpayer dollars
For
to hold
sure.
an election where
Nothing
if
changes.
100% of the people voted no, it still remains the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. And just so confusing to the public.
It's very confusing, because, there was question about, like, when we published the results, like, if you looked at West Fork and
Yeah.
Elkins, they had one vote for the millage. And so the question is, well, no one turned up to vote. Well, it's because it was an election by candidate. That's the only one vote we expected there. And
Did you get a
so-
lot of questions
Well,
about
I've seen,
Okay.
I've seen it
and
as a
some
post.
discussion?
Yeah, that, oh, look at the low voter
Yeah.
turnout for that. Well, it's because of the Constitution that it has to be voted on.
Yeah.
Got it.
So,
If
yeah,
you want to change the millage in your district, you need to get involved with, changes to either the Constitution and or the, school,
yes,
otherwise you're stuck.
Yes.
There you go.
It just is a little crazy.
Oh, no, I think it's all good stuff to talk about. Yeah, it's fascinating.
I guess when there are so many other things that have to, or that the legislature presumes have to be changed, that are more important than something like, the millage.
Where if you look at the things that have been proposed,
Yeah,
they don't change anything.
yeah,
Few of them don't.
Yeah. yeah, and,
Yeah.
I mean,
And then when you have a school board election where you knock it, like,
mm,
you have a 1.5% turnout.
yeah. Well, that won't, next year, it's all gonna be on the primary, right?
yes, so that's what Act 503 does.
Good.
So, which is House Bill 1724.
There you go, timely.
So, yes.
Transition.
So, this bill,
Next
It's
one,
House Bill
1724,
so this,
school
Like-
elections, yeah.
so this one moves school board members' terms from 5 years to either 4 or 6 years.
So,
So the school boards will have to get together and determine, how they want to do it. So what that means is that they've now moved to school board elections in even years. But this bill even went a little bit further, and it said school board members will now be elected with the primary. So for instance, in Benton County, they have one school district that normally elects their school board in November. So now it's putting every school board election across the state in the
So
primary.
they don't have a choice
They
anymore.
don't have.
I
a
mean, it'll
choice
make it
anymore.
easier, I guess, for
Yeah.
respect.
Well,
than
we
having
were,
to reach out to everybody else.
right, and we were fortunate, all of our school districts chose the primary.
oh, yeah,
So for instance, Saline County, all of theirs are in November. Pulaski County had a mix.
Yeah.
Benton County had a mix. So this now, yes, puts everything even year, puts it with the primary. It also puts the runoff election for a school board race to the general election.
mm,
So, school board, elections were kind of strange in the sense that those members were elected and then they immediately can start serving. But if if you're a JP, for instance, you're elected in November, but your term doesn't start until January 1st. This now kind of puts their term kind of the same
oh, it does,
Kind of.
okay,
thing because their runoff will be in the general. So it does change that as well. So we wouldn't have to worry about a runoff election for school board. So, yeah. So. And then, and that bill is quite long. because
Yeah.
Full
Yeah.
election stuff was all over the place, so it had to change it. And then vote locations is the next one.
Okay.
This one, so there was also, I didn't include it in here, there was also another bill about early vote that now gives the election commission the authority to close it, it's not this one, to close early vote in case of an emergency. That had not been, we had the authority to close election day sites that was specifically stated in the law, but early voting was never included in that.
Mm.
So there was a bill, like I said, it didn't print it out because it's, but, so we do have that ability to do that.
This is
Um,
Act what?
This is, I don't have the act number for this one yet.
Okay,
Good.
1878.
Yeah, 1878. This one came out of, I think it's Brighton County. Crittenden, yes, thank you, where there was a polling location discussion for early vote that, kind of ended, and the commission couldn't agree on a site for early vote in West Memphis, which is a rather large city in that county, and the county seat where early vote was being held was actually a smaller city than West Memphis.
Oh,
And so, this bill kind of came out of that whole thing,
Yeah.
because they were actually sued the election commission to try and make them open up a site. So what this bill does is this bill requires an election commission to open up an early vote site if that city has a population of more than 15,000 people. So what this bill doesn't do, it doesn't say for how long, for how many days.
Yeah.
Is it just one day? Is it 2 weeks? Is it all of that? I suspect that the election commission will have the authority to determine, what that time frame is. But it does make that now a requirement, to have an early vote site. We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when we listened to testimony on this bill,
Mhm.
it sounded like they were the only county that was not in compliance with what this bill would be.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah, and that's why they kept saying, because they asked for, to see how much would this cost counties,
Yeah.
and it came back as 0. But I think their reasoning was because counties were already
Yeah.
doing it,
this,
yeah.
except this one county,
I mean, there aren't that many towns.
over 15.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
10,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so it was, yeah.
Yeah, but so anyway.
Yeah.
I believe. that
Well,
they would
is
have-
Current Grove? Evanston, they have
No.
15,000.
Yeah.
So in Washington County, it would only be Springdale and
Yeah.
Fayetteville, which of course we
Already
already meet that, but
Yeah.
we meet it with the other towns too. So basically, that's what this does, it sets that as a requirement for cities over 15,000, but it does not say days or
Okay,
hours or anything like that.
yeah,
So-
well, and I suppose they'll take broadest definition of that depending on where they are.
I think they'll give counties leeway because you may not be able to be open for 2 weeks.
Right.
You have to have a facility that's willing to do that.
Mm.
The only facility you know for sure that can do that is your county clerk's office, because that is a government office. And then the last set is the voter registration. This is Act 372, it's Senate Bill 304. This is the one that will allow transfer between counties on election day. So this definitely is something we have discussed for many years about the fact that you have registered voters in the state who, because they didn't fall within that 4-day window,
Yeah,
could not vote in that county.
That might be the best bill of the session related to elections.
Mhm.
Yes, in terms of accessibility,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
We
quite sure.
I looked
Yeah.
for the general election, we had over 135 known provisional ballots where the voters were registered in another county
Would have counted,
would have counted
just in, that was the general election.
just in the general election.
Just corrupt.
And that doesn't include individuals who decided not to vote
Yeah.
or went back to their other
And
county.
that
So
brought
those are-
many
Exactly,
times.
so
that.
those are known
Yeah,
ones, that we had that would have been able to count, and this ballot, our provisional, would,
Right.
if this bill was in play at this moment, that provisional ballot would be able to be counted. So definitely this bill is a good one for voters. So we do still want to encourage voters to check voter, even though this is kind of a safety net for the voter, this actually is going to cause a lot more work on our end. Not that it's not worth it,
sure.
but the way this will work is a voter will have to, fill out a voter registration card. You'll have to call the clerk's office, and that part is still kind of normal. But the clerk this is actually adding work in the clerk's office. So the clerk will have to go into Power Profile, find their voter registrations, transfer them, then go into Connect, because you can't do everything in one program, you have to go into another program, and then add them. But, on the back end for us, that's 135 less provisional ballots.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
we will have, and 135 voters who would have been able to have their ballot counted.
yeah, that's terrific.
So, yeah. And then in this long list of things, there, you'll see there's a bunch of additional that were county specific, that were candidates. I didn't include all of those in here because they just won't, impact
Mhm.
our function of the election.
But do you maintain this on the website?
I don't, but I can. I can go in, I need to go in and update it, and put these new acts in and change the links. But I can add this to our
I'm just
county
trying to
website.
think of how to, from a commissioner's standpoint, tell people that they can find the information that narrows it down to, what we're talking about, election stuff. And, like the fact that this has a link, has all identified as a link. I'd be valuable to be able to
I
play on
don't disagree. I'm always for sharing the information and transparency.
But-
Yeah, I don't disagree.
It's gonna, if you do that, it's gonna have to be in a manner that, isn't just gonna be a flood of information that voters go,
I think if I break it down into, like I have this, these bills concern absentee voting. So if you're concerned about absentee voting,
oh, yeah,
yes, these
Yeah.
bills concern election days when we're holding elections. These concern what you do at the poll. That's what the voters are gonna see. And then I can include these, if you're a candidate, hey, here's all the bills for a candidate. If you're wanting to do an initiative or referendum, here's all the bills that are for that. So I think if I break it out into
Yeah.
the categories.
it's
then
just
they
looking
can-
at this, people are gonna go, ugh.
Right, but if it's broken out into the categories,
It could be
Sure.
a small number of people that would be interested in an easy way to reach this information.
Right. Right,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. Thank you but I think we should do it. Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
and I'll go back in, like I said, and re-update it and send it back out, but I will work on getting it on
Okay.
the website. I do know that the state board will have a link to this
Oh,
on their website, and I can, when they get it, I can put it on ours too, but I think yours has links in it too, but I definitely can add this.
well, and maybe, I don't know. We don't want something that's gonna muddy the water after SBEC promulgates the rules on stuff.
So if I'm just including the links to the bill,
That's in it.
yeah,
Okay,
or the act, so yeah,
Okay.
then,
cool.
then yeah, so.
Okay, election calendar.
So
You didn't make it large enough.
I did print it.
No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing, but boy, it's on the edge.
It is, this is what I, have noted as dates for us for the future election.
Right.
This also includes dates for the November special election and then the March primary. I have not gone out so far as.
We don't know that we have a
We don't,
special election yet, but in case.
right,
Okay.
right. If we do, it will be November the 18th. Yeah. So, well, normally it would be November the 11th,
Mhm.
but, because that is a holiday, it moves to the following week.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, this is really not necessarily for you guys to commit to today, but to kind of look at your calendars and kind of see, because we will want to kind of definitely define, some of these meeting dates. The one I do know, October 14th, that's gonna be commissioner training. So that will be here in
It's gonna be
Fayetteville.
here.
Mhm. Yep, it'll be here in Fayetteville. Coordinator training will be October 6th to 10th. That'll be down in Little Rock. We will want to meet, I think, this summer. If you'll notice, really, there isn't anything on this calendar until September, August, and that's for school board candidates. But when we get September, that's the deadline to file a special election. But I do think it's worthwhile for us to meet sometime this summer, to kind of look forward to early vote sites and election day sites. So that when we get into having to do all of this stuff, it's kind of got that hammer down. That what is our thought process for early vote and election day? So we're not having to make those big heavy decisions all in one setting. We also will need to have a meeting, sometime probably in July or August. Becky is getting Data Scout to go back and clean up our books. There's some precincts, that are over the 3,000 registered voter limit, which means we have to split those precincts. There's 2 of that I know. And then we've got like little tiny slivers of stuff that we kind of need to, that don't have any registered voters in them, but we need to clean up those precinct lines. So she's gonna do a big cleanup on our precinct map and the commission will have to approve that. So, yeah, but that, I'll let you know when she has that ready for us. So that'll be something that she's actually getting Dave Scout to do for us. We're not having to do,
Okay.
I'm thankful, for having to go in.
On these, I noticed the dates in November are. I mean, they're basically surrounding the Thanksgiving. That's
So,
gonna get challenging.
okay, it is going to get challenging. This is one thing I'm not 100% sure on. So because that November election falls on the 18th, the 28th would be the 10th day for us to certify the election.
Is that the day after
That's the day
Thanksgiving?
after Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow.
If we had a provisional ballot, or
Oh.
not a provisional ballot, but an absentee ballot that was overseas, we'd have to wait the full 10 days. But see, that's something we
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah,
So you have to set it on that date.
I think so, because
Wow.
it's not a state holiday.
oh, it's not? I was gonna say.
It is
it
a county.
You told the SBC.
Oh, I asked the SBEC and I asked if we couldn't have run a bill
Yeah,
this session
yeah,
to have the Friday after Thanksgiving be declared a state holiday.
yeah.
Right now, the way it works is it is it is a holiday given to state employees.
Yeah.
Because the
Oh,
state
right,
shut down,
right, right.
but it's a proclamation from the governor.
Oh.
So it's not an official state holiday.
Or some legislative change that allows a proclamation of the governor
To
to
be,
be considered
yes.
a state holiday.
So
Wow.
because it's not a state or federal holiday, we could petition the president to make it a federal holiday. Because they can still make.
Wow, I gotta put it at that date though, otherwise.
So you would just set it as the Friday after Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
it'd be a federal holiday.
Oh, sure.
So that, maybe you could petition for that. So,
Oh, my goodness.
so anyway, because that is not a federal or a state
Yeah.
holiday, I think technically we would have to meet that day if we had an absentee ballot. The only problem is the courthouse is closed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So does that mean the county clerk's office would have to be open to allow the mail to run? And I don't have the answers to these questions. yet.
Yeah.
So that's,
Does the mail run? I guess it does.
the mail runs the Friday after Thanksgiving, because it's not a federal holiday. See, the mailman might like us too.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. There you
We
go.
take this to a federal.
There you go, make it a federal.
level.
Yep.
So yes, there is October and November looks a little messy.
Yeah. it
So,
does.
because not only will we have a or a special election, you're also gonna have filing.
Filing.
You're also gonna have all of those different things, so you're gonna be certifying and you're gonna be approving ballots for, primary elections, so it gets a little messy in there. So yeah,
All right, well.
So what are these? Do chronologically. Have that place on today.
these two are my known dates.
Okay.
Yes.
These are fluid.
Yes,
Lot
some of these are
fluidity.
fluid, yes.
Wow.
Fluidity.
Yeah, and you'll see where I've got like something that is an EC meeting and
Yeah.
something that's a possible EC meeting. What I tried to do was sit down and give us some ideas and parameters of when we would need to meet so that your calendars could be a little flexible, with that. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate this. This is,
Yeah.
I mean, in spite of all the indefiniteness of it, it does give us a track to run on.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the training dates. No, that's the election calendar. Training dates.
The coordinator, they're included is October sixth, the 10th. The commissioner training date will be October 14th. Train the trainer will actually be here as well. I don't have this on here, but that's December the 2nd. That doesn't include. the
Oh,
commission.
okay, yeah.
And then, of course, we'll have poll worker training. So that's all the different types of training that we'll be doing.
Are you gonna do poll worker training, after the first of the year?
So,
or-
yes, so I should have given you this big calendar that I've been working on.
No, it'd probably make it even
Yeah.
more
So,
indefinite.
yeah, my plan is to do poll worker training the 13th to the 22nd
Okay.
of January. Bring in the high school students, the 26th through the 30th, and then do supervisor training the 2nd through the 6th.
Okay.
That's my goal,
It's
and
the end of the year is gonna be crazy.
it will be, and even January and February, and then you're not even talking about snow
Winter.
days and all of that sort of thing. But the nice, we'll be able to train in here, we're gonna train in smaller groups. The schools, because I had a request from one of the schools, last year after we finished training. They want their own individual rather than having all the schools together.
Oh,
Because it got a lot, so, so I'm gonna bring in, and because it's a smaller facility, I will bring in the school districts. In their, like, Springville High will come on their own, Don Tyson will come on their own, Archer will come on their own. Fayetteville, they have so many, I have to divide them up into 3 different sessions. But yeah, so. We've been working on the calendar, trying to get that, just so that I can give the commission a heads up of.
okay,
when
we
things are
appreciate that. Other business, and you've got at least one other business.
Yes, we have discussed this previously in other meetings. I think Jim had brought it up a long, long time ago about audits of elections. I've never kind of pushed forward with it because we didn't have the space. If we had done an audit like what the state board performs. We didn't have space, we would have to remove ballot boxes, we'd have to designate, we just
Sure.
don't have the room for it. But because we're here now.
Yeah.
I think that maybe we might want to think about adding that as a pre-certification before an election, that we choose a ballot box. We hand count those ballots, match them to the tape, which would be the same process that the state board does for their audit. And that way, that's just a layer of us saying, hey, you know, here's our second look at the election. We're verifying that the counts that we've shown you when you do a hand count, that they match.
Now, wait, you're saying before an election?
Before the
So,
certification.
before certification, okay, because I was going, why would you do it?
Yeah,
before
so
the
basically,
election?
the way the state has described it, it's a reverse LNA.
Yeah.
So before the election, we do LNA, where we are creating it. After the election, you've got the voted ballots and you go through and you hand count them to make sure that they match your tape. Benton County and Pulaski County have already kind of made this standard process with their elections, before they do certifications. They have, and so now that we actually have our own facility, I think it might be good for commission to.
So
entertain that idea.
you're thinking about doing that in the week before we certify on Friday?
That's the question, yeah.
Yeah,
So it would be one box. You don't have to do the whole election.
yeah.
We have now participated in audits in Sebastian, or no, in Crawford, Benton, Newton. I've been to other places too. For us to count 1,000 ballots, it took less than an hour.
Mm,
So it's
Yeah.
not, it's
Yeah.
not time, I mean, it's not overly
Yep.
Yeah.
time
So
consuming.
would you make that part of the Friday certification process?
So for a small election, you could.
Oh, okay.
For a primary election or a general election, I would think we would want to do it, like, say, on the Tuesday
So
before. Yeah, I think we would want to add it as a special meeting.
okay.
Just because it'll be a little bit more cumbersome to
Mhm.
do. And it's not it doesn't have to be an audit of the whole ballot. Because what we've done and what the state does is they pick one race.
Really?
And that's what makes it go so
Yeah.
fast. Is, you're just like, okay, we're gonna count and they.
One race based on one box,
Mhm.
not all ballots in that race, just one
Well,
box.
they use a countywide race, which means it'll be on every ballot in that box.
Yeah, okay.
So-
But just counting box.
Just, yep,
Yeah.
and that's it. So that's why it doesn't, that's
Got it,
why it's
got it.
not overly time.
And then you would make that part of the regular routine through the election.
Yeah,
Okay.
for every election, we would say on the Tuesday following the election, we would count, I mean, it doesn't always have to be Tuesday, but if we set it up for the primary and the general, we say on the Tuesday following the election, we will audit 2 boxes for a countywide race.
Okay.
And then we would just bring that ballot box in, you set up your little table and you can count.
So do others, when they're choosing which box to audit, which race to audit, do they do it randomly?
So what they do is they don't, we've not done early vote because the numbers are so massive. But you choose an election day site, randomly, and then you choose a countywide race randomly. So you don't know, you would just draw it out of a hat. This is the ballot box for county, this is the race for county. And then you just open up the box, you sort your ballots and then add them up. And then just make sure they match the tape. And that's it.
You buy all the naysayers.
Yep, it would be a public meeting.
Right.
And so, yeah. So,
Well,
I'm good with it. You know, if you guys think you
Can
can
I-
handle it, and yeah, sure, I'll make a motion to approve.
all in favor?
I,
Aye.
So is that something we want to do for the school election?
If you want to do it. it's school election.
Or do we want to just make
Yeah.
it standard?
I was under the impression it was standard.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
so it's not.
And that's,
Yeah.
yep,
Right.
Yep.
That's
So-
all.
okay.
Okay.
Alright.
Right, other business. I've got something.
Got it.
So, you went out,
Do it.
I joined the commission in 2014 and I'm resigning.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I have really
You're not gonna
enjoyed
accept it.
my time on the commission. We expanded early voting from 2 locations to 21, which is huge. Man, yeah, funny.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've been on here, and yeah, I didn't think I'd be emotional about it, guys. You know, I really have enjoyed working with every one of you. We got a polling site on the big campus. We switched to vote centers. That is huge. We made tremendous progress in elections. And yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer and Lacey. You guys are.
Well, like I said, we're not gonna accept it, so.
So does this mean that
You are running.
I will have more news to share.
When is the official announcement?
I drafted up, yeah, I didn't even know it would be emotional. Look, it's just been a long time.
Yeah,
I think we have a great commission, the best in the state, no question, and this is good government, right? It's bipartisan and it's working together.
Yeah.
This is what it should all be. So,
I have a very serious question. We are still gonna get baby pictures.
anytime that you want baby pictures, Lacey, please send me a text. I drafted up,
okay.
too long resignation letter. I'll
Oh,
give
my
you guys
goodness,
all a
yeah.
copy of it. So anyway. That I recounted the accomplishments a little bit more. You guys
Super.
can have one if you want. You can ask one to Tom. But, that's too.
Oh, my. This is totally official.
Yeah,
It's all.
we're gonna do it, let's do it.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Cut the cord.
Yeah, exactly. Got it.
Pass that on to the replacement.
I need to keep this.
Oh, okay.
This is terrific. Yeah, thank you for putting that
Do,
together.
do we have, possible, replacements for you? Do you know?
In process,
Okay.
in process, and I'm trying to do, good,
Okay.
you know, yeah. So I will have some say, but then of course it'll be.
Yeah.
But yeah, in process.
Okay.
So I have to get somebody good and somebody soon.
Yeah, I think you have,
45 days.
45 days, yes.
30.
I-
Actually, 45.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is it from the time you resign or from the time it's the committee is notified?
Oh, I don't know.
I'll notify the committee here shortly.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
that day, and hopefully
Okay.
we can advance that, but, at least it's not a supervision. time of year.
Right. Yeah.
Related to elections.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope to work with guys in another capacity on many of these same issues. And for real, I would love to do that. Yep,
That'd be great.
all right,
We wish you all the best.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
State, actually, full name, state agency.
Oh, yeah,
governmental
yeah.
affairs.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The governmental affairs, is a little question.
All right.
I'm really be sad to see. you.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been so wonderful. I mean, easy to work with and just, like you said,
Yeah.
the guys, I've always
Here
appreciated
comes the
that
news media.
about the commission is that you have worked together as a team and not as two different parties. And I've always appreciated that aspect.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I just fine without me.
No. We haven't adjourned yet. Do we have other business?